Joined now by Ken Feldman, the art director for God of War 3. And now that we're into the third God of War, when you're looking for inspiration from the art side, how deep are you digging down into mythology? Are you reading the liner notes of the Iliad now? Or?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's always that kind of backstory that when you're playing through a level, you want to make sure exists. And I don't want to give away some of the environments, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look for, in Greek mythology, I mean, there's some pretty violent kind of stuff that happened there, and what Zeus did to some of these, these humans or whatever, and kind of the punishment that he put on there, this torment in hell. Things that were described like in paintings by Bosch, like, back in the 15th century. It's like, I want to make sure that stuff comes to the viewer. And it's like, okay, maybe that's not the absolute defining element of the story that Stig and the writers are putting together, but it's things that, it's that little caveat, those little things that you see in the environment that just like help the reality of Greek mythology kind of, come through in our story, and it gives the player kind of like, if they're willing to look, it's there for them to dig deeper.
Now, during the presentation, Stig mentioned that in the first two God of Wars, you were sort of bumping up against the edge of what the PlayStation 2 could do. Is there any particular thing in God of War 3 that you're happy finally we get to be able to do this? One thing that stood out to me just watching the demonstration, when Kratos was in a dark area, the Blades of Chaos, you could see the red glowing. It was a subtle thing, but it really stood out to me. Is there anything like that you're happy you're finally able to get into the game?
Yeah, I mean, and I can just list stuff off, and I will. We can do 50 dynamic lights per vertice. Kratos, just his memory footprint would fit on not one PlayStation 2, but it would take two PlayStation 2s to make it fit on. We're not using 64 by 64 pixel textures. We're using 2048 by 2048 as standard. We can have as many joints as we used on our whole fleet of AI characters. We're using that on like one massive like boss in our game now. I mean, what we can do now on the PlayStation 3, it's absolutely ridiculous compared to kind of where we were on the past games. And now, like, we look at screenshots that we did from those two games that we're incredibly proud of the art, and it's like, wow, it's amazing where we've come with this new technology and what guys can kind of finally do, and it's like, once you kind of give them this power and unleash their creativity, it's really unbelievable what they're creating.
At least some of the technology would appear to have gone into some of the more gory things that Kratos can now do, and I don't want to give anything away to those who weren't able to see, but let's just say if you remember when Kratos would gouge out the eye of a Cyclops, that is nothing. That's child's play compared to some of the stuff that we've just seen that you'll see when the game came out. When you're doing things like that, is it something where sort of like the special effects shops that work on the Friday the 13th movies, where it's so far removed from reality that or are you just kind of crazy and really into that type of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of fans of horror in the game, and those genres and stuff for sure. Even Ghost in the Shell, that became kind of some of the things that they were doing with violence in there and ripping limbs off. That became a big influence for us. But it all really does tie back to Greek mythology and that story of a lot of those writings are about tormented people, and there some pretty evil stuff that's going on in there. And it's like, I think we're holding true to that, and I think we're holding true to who Kratos is as this very tormented individual by the gods. So while we have a lot of that gore in there, I think it does fit within what we're trying to describe and the reality of that world that we're trying to make.
So as Stig said, it's not just gore for gore's sake.
Absolutely, it's not gore for gore's sake.
What are the games you're playing right now? These types of things definitely help the readers get into the head of who's making these games that they can't wait to play.
Well, let's see. I think my favorite game that I finished at the end of last year was Dead Space. I loved. I just felt like some of the design was incredibly inspired, and I liked some of the bosses. I really liked the level design in that game. I love Killzone, and one of the great things about working for Sony is that we're constantly in talk with developers from studios that are making stuff, the first party studios and stuff that are making stuff for PlayStation. So I've been talking to Guerrilla Studios now for 4 years now about their technology, as well as Naughty Dog. So some of the things that they were doing in Uncharted on the first game, and they're doing on the second game that Killzone's doing. That's been a big influence for us for kind of getting our technology and our pipeline up and running. But it's been not just again, that toolbox. It's how do you use that toolbox within our world, within our gameplay, and really make it feel like it's part of our universe.